Most people use December to escape their life. Winners use it to design the next one. This episode isn't about hype, it's about mental calibration. It's about getting your thoughts, your focus, and your energy aligned before the new year begins. Robbins, Martell, Lang, Mylett, Maxwell, and Adams, they all say the same thing. Mindset isn't fluff, it's leverage. Because when your thinking shifts, your habits follow. So today, we're breaking down what winners do differently at year end, how to reframe failure, reconnect a purpose, and rewrite your story before 2026 even starts. Let's dive in and welcome back to the Pursuit of Progress podcast. Adam, how you doing?
Whew, I am excited. I'm excited for this episode. I'm excited for January 1, and I'm excited for 2026.
Mm.
All of these for one reason and one reason only, because I think this is the first year where I think a lot of this stuff is really dialed in, at least on a personal level. And I know for a lot of our audience too, that's been just sharing feedback and sharing some minor, small wins on their end as well. I just am super pumped just to kind of put a lot of this to action today and going into 2026. So super pumped to have you guys with us today on a brand new episode of the Pursuit of Progress podcast. Ben, what's new with you before we hop right into this stuff?
2026, bring it on like Donkey Kong. Let's go.
You had a pretty successful weekend with your daughter and state championship for cross country, which was super inspiring to see Nitia as a sophomore now, just continuing to kick butt.
Same
Everything.
thing. It's pretty remarkable to think that her high school cross country career is already halfway over. Just finished her sophomore season, so she's got 2 years left. But she ended up getting honorable mention all state. She didn't run quite as well as she had hoped for, but that's going to be one of our topics that we touch on here first. I think is how to reframe failure.
Yeah, thank you for setting that up for me.
Yeah,
T-ball,
and we had to
baby.
do that with her.
So let's just let's just jump right into this and talk about how to reframe failure. And I love Ed Mylett. I know Ben does too. We talk about him a lot. He's just somebody that very puts his words in a very simple way to just digest and really take action out of them. So what he talks about, which is a very simple topic here, is failure isn't final; it's feedback. Failure isn't final; it's feedback. We all had moments this year that maybe didn't go as planned. You know, deals fell through, habits slipped, maybe some of the expectations we had for ourselves and for others were just missed altogether. But if you treat those moments as data, not defeat, then they become fuel. So think back on one setback this year that frustrated you, and then ask yourself, what did you learn from this? What did it teach you? What muscle did it build that success never could? I've learned that failure isn't a wall, it really is a mirror, and it shows you exactly where to grow next. So write it down and capture that lesson before it fades. There's so many valuable little nuggets from that last 30 seconds that I shared with you guys.
Oh
So
my gosh,
I'd love
yeah.
to have Ben kind of dial in some of these points a little bit more clearly for the audience.
I think this is so critical, and I think it's so easy, and so many of us will label ourselves if we fail as a failure, and we feel like it is final. I know that I've done that over and over again throughout the course of my life. Now that I've have a little more life experience and maturity, you realize that failure is part of the process. It's part of the journey. You have to expect it. And if you're not failing, you're not going to be moving forward. That's why some of the best business people, the greatest minds, inventors, sales folks, those that fail the most, and I know that we've done several other episodes on this, how those that fail the most are the ones that have the biggest breakthroughs, have the most success, have the most rewarding lives. So you can't be afraid of the failure. You have to embrace it and know that it's part of the process. And when you can do that, it's almost as if you can celebrate failure. And I'm not talking about celebrating failure, the fact that you failed. Celebrate the fact that you tried and you're getting that feedback. Okay, I did this and I didn't get the outcome that I wanted. Now I need to rechange some things. With my daughter, kind of wrapping that story up, there are some things that we want to improve on. She didn't quite get the results that she wanted with some of her times this year, even though she had a really successful year. She was Jefferson County MVP, individual conference champion, first team all conference, honorable mention all state. So, really an incredible year. But there was some things that she felt were unfinished. And so, what we're going to do, I call it going back to the lab. Let's go back to the lab, figure out what we did well, what we need to change, how we can improve, and let's really build on that training, that off-season training, and see if we can maximize that. So when we go back into our next season, we're going to be that much more prepared and that much more fit.
Love that. Go back to the lab, baby. I think about my one of my favorite Michael Jordan quotes, and as I preface it with saying it's one of my favorites, I'm still going to butcher it, but just talking about how, you know, the reason he's failed time and time again, and it's because of those failures, is why he succeeds. Did I say that right, or am I missing a few points there? I feel
He
like
gives
I,
a little background, and he talks about, I've missed 25 potential game winning shots. I've
yeah.
missed over 50% of my field goal attempts. And the reason that I fail is why I succeed.
Hmm. Yep. I think the mindset shift of failure is something that is tough for all of us. You know, I've had times in my life where I've had bigger failures with past businesses, stuff like that, where it's hard to, in the moment, not feel defeated, not feel frustrated, but there's a time for that. And hopefully, you can, after doing this a few times, failing a few times, you just build up a little bit tougher muscle when it comes to this and give yourself the time to kind of be a little bit down, maybe, but then also give yourself permission to step out of that and really reflect on what you did and didn't do correctly, why you failed. And then it just means that next time you're going to do it a little bit better. You're going to maybe fail again, but at least you're going to be making progress. You're going to be making steps in the right direction. Before you know it, it's a championship ring. It's a massive business that you've built over the last decade, whatever it may be. It's the
Because
people that stick with those failures and grow from them are the ones that succeed.
because when you can accept failure and know that it's part of the process, what I think is by far more dangerous is the fear of failure. Because when you have that fear of failure, you don't even want to go try. You don't even want to go start the side hustle or take the shot or approach the girl because you're so afraid of failing.
Yep. It's crazy how easy some of this stuff is, and I'll be vulnerable here. It's easier said than done in a lot of cases, but you don't have to completely perfect this overnight. Just the next time you guys have, even if it's a small loss, maybe it's just a daily, something just in your day to day that doesn't go as planned. Still, try and just work on those small things first. How can you reframe that and take a little bit of a win out of it? What kind of lesson did you learn? Start small, and then now hopefully when those bigger losses happen, you also have that same mentality, that mental shift, that mindset shift to grow from it and not just be down and take it as just a complete negative.
Love that. What I want to talk about next is reconnecting to purpose. One of my favorite authors, John Maxwell, says that when your why is clear, your how becomes easy. That's the next step. Reconnect to your purpose. There are so many of us, we might have these big goals, these dreams, but then we say how. And so that's why you want to be so clear on what that is. So ask yourself, what are you really chasing in 2020 in 2026, excuse me? Are you chasing status or significance? Because one will drain you and the other will sustain you. Take a minute to write a one sentence purpose statement down. I'm building blank so that blank. Fill that in. That statement will become your filter. Every decision either aligns with it or distracts from it. Purpose creates power, and power gives direction.
Love that. Yeah, I think a big one here that is difficult for certain situations, but whenever possible, make it bigger than just yourself. So, how
Yeah.
can you bring other people in your family to directly benefit from whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish? Because when it's something bigger than yourself, you're going to be that much more accountable to doing whatever it is that you need to do. If it's just yourself, I don't know why, but it's so crazy how often we kind of give up on ourselves easier than we do on others. And at least that's the case with me a lot of the time. And being able to just have that power of somebody else relying on you is going to definitely take you guys further.
And it's so exciting when you can build that community and bring others with you along for the journey. That's one thing that I've really enjoyed about our relationship is that we've developed a really healthy dynamic going to the gym. And that's kind of where it started, just working out every day. But then it's turned into all these other things that we're now pursuing together. And we're not perfect. We don't have the top rated podcast in the world, but you know what? We're doing it together. We're building, we're improving, we're growing, and we're sharing the workload.
And that's what's going to carry any of you guys further. I think Ben and I are very lucky to have found each other for that accountability partner. I've had past accountability partners that did not pan out. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Sometimes it's difficult to find that other person to kind of hold you accountable and to make it bigger than yourself. But just stick at it. Those people are out there. You're going to find them if you're intentional enough and really making the effort. And when you do find that right person, it is a huge competitive advantage over others that don't have that.
Yeah. Mm. Well said.
Before we move on, what I know I'm kind of just off the cuff here, but what would be a one sentence purpose statement that maybe you have right now? And the reason I'm asking that is I'm thinking about like that other side business that you and your girlfriend Grace are working on.
Yeah.
I think that's like a good example of how maybe that could fit into there.
Yeah. What I tend to do is I tend to think of what does this, I have a vision. I'm very big on visuals and vision. And I always think about what does this person look like? So I'm doing this side hustle with my girlfriend Grace. It's called Future Funded, and what we're doing is we're building an online community around student resources that are pursuing higher education. So really trying to build a community for kids and parents when it comes to scholarships and uh, how to access grants, how to get into schools, and all these other. There's a lot of confusion in that still, even in 2025, and so there's a need for that. And so I ask myself, what does that person look like? How does he behave? What are the daily activities? And ultimately, what it comes down to for me, usually, I will define what that vision is, but then I will then kind of going back to some of our earlier episodes, I'll break it up into what are those weekly habits. Have the big goal, that big vision, but then what are the things that I need to do daily, weekly, and monthly to make that happen, and then really focus on those things.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
And so instead of, and just kind of as a follow up to your question there, so I don't write down like New Year's resolutions or goals anymore. I write down activities, daily habits, time blocking, things that I'm going to do on a daily basis. I know what that vision is and what that goal is, but then I write down the things that I actually need to do instead of the goal.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Love that. Well, I think one way to kind of take that a step further is just all right. So you've identified whether you're chasing status or significance. Hopefully, it's significance, and then you're building out that purpose statement that becomes your filter because every decision afterwards is going to either align with it or distract you from it. Once you've built all that up, now it's time to rewrite your story. And Mel Robbins, she talks a lot about how you're always just one decision away from a completely different life. That starts with the story you tell yourself. So here's a simple daily reset routine that Ben and I like. So in the morning, visualize the person you're becoming. And then midday, check your self talk. Are you building confidence internally or maybe are you breaking it? And then in the evening, the final point of this is having a quick little session. It doesn't even take more than 5 minutes, but write down one win, no matter how small it was. Those three checkpoints will keep your identity growing forward because confidence isn't built by thinking positive, it's built by keeping promises to yourself.
Self talk, man, that is so important. And I used to be the worst at self talk. I would be so critical of myself when I was younger, uh, teenage years, 20s, even in my 30s. I would just beat myself up verbally in a way that I would never talk to a friend, a loved one, or a family member. And I think it's because we have a tendency to put a lot of pressure on ourselves and we want to have our life look and be a certain way. And I just came to the realization that just how unhealthy that was. And when I was able to really change that and the way that I'm talking to myself now, I try and act as, I talk to myself as if I'm talking to my best friend. You got this, you can do it. Keep going, keep pushing. This is part of the journey. And I'll kind of have this internal dialogue where I'm encouraging me, but in a very positive way. Um, and then how am I addressing failure? How am I taking those hurdles head on? What is my internal conversation with that like? And that self talk is just so important.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think that brings us into the next point that I know you're going to share, which is just realigning your inner circle. So just talk a little
Yeah.
bit more about other ways that you can intentionally kind of create this safe space around you to avoid this self-talk and at all costs.
Yeah, and sometimes we've talked about doing some internal audits over the last couple of episodes. How important it is to audit your habits, your behaviors, and this is one as well. Really auditing that circle of influence. Dan Martell refers to it as your environment dictating your outcomes. So look around, identify who the five people that are closest to you are. They growing or are they coasting? Because if they're not expanding, you're contracting. Winners curate their circle. They spend more time with people who challenge, not comfort. Audit your influences online, at work, in friendships, and intentionally add proximity to people who pull you upward. Growth is contagious when you're around the right crowd. And I also feel the same way about my social media as well. I go through every 3 to 6 months and curate that, and making sure that even though a lot of these people are online, I want to make sure that I have a very positive online environment, and even the content that I'm consuming, I want that to be almost like mentor based. And so my Instagram, and so I've kind of changed things up. Like my Instagram now is only like positive role models, mentors. It's much less friend focused. I kind of use it for, I have a handful of friends that I'm connected with. Facebook is more like friends and family, but then Instagram is my just like all sorts of personal mentors, Jim Rohn, Ed Mylett, Alex Hermosi, real estate mentors. I'm just getting all of this healthy content that's very encouraging. And so that in person circle, that social media circle.
Yeah, it brings me back to an episode we did. I think it was probably almost a year ago. You guys can find it if you search for propellers and anchors. And it's just a good
Yeah.
example visually of what we're talking about here with realigning your circle. And this is something that really could also be done as like an audit at the end of every year, thinking through maybe those five people that were closest to you in 2025. Were any of those people different from 2024? In 2023, 2022. If not, then that's probably a good indication that you're not growing and you're probably more so coasting. So just to kind of take that full circle, when I talk about propellers and anchors, any person that you have closest to you, maybe one of these five people, are they one of those two? Are they a propeller, meaning they're helping propel you forward, or are they an anchor and they're pulling you down? And not to sound super shallow or just cold about this topic, but it's okay that even if people really close to you and your family are ending up being anchors, doesn't mean you have to cut them completely out of your life, but at least being more intentional about what kind of proximity you give them on a daily basis to help protect that energy that we're talking about here.
So how would you describe the difference between someone that is an anchor versus a propeller? If you don't know, or maybe you're thinking like, is this person healthy for me to be around? Or are they in my corner or are they not? Do I want to grow this relationship or do I need to create some distance? Are there certain behavior characteristics that help you identify if you need to spend more or less
Absolutely.
time with a certain individual?
I'd say one of the first ones, and I do this with just social life in general, is the person that you're surrounding yourself with, are they optimistic? Are they a glass half full or half empty type person? And just having that winning mentality, I think there is some luck involved with certain aspects of life, but I think more so the luck comes from just doing not just the work that's required, but also doing it with an optimistic, positive attitude, because that positive attitude is going to bring other positive aspects into your life. You're just going to have so much more growth and fulfillment by having those types of people around you. So, when you are, maybe considering who fits into this class of five people, when you ask somebody how they're doing, are they positive? And they're saying, "Oh, I'm great, man. I'm working on this new project," or "Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm visiting some family next week." Or are they, "Yeah, I'm all right. Just, man, can you believe the Broncos lost or the Buffaloes lost again last weekend?" Just finding ways to identify what kind of personality and mentality these other people have, and being very focused on having the right type of people being around you. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I think that when people are very critical, I just call them critics. When someone is criticizing me for trying to better myself or advance my life, my career,
The
and
haters.
a lot of times it comes in the form of a friend. A lot of times, family members, they can be very very critical at times. And we've probably all experienced that to a degree. The reality, though, is that by me trying to better myself and improve my life, that is going to make certain people uncomfortable because they're not doing the same. They're coasting. They're not asking more from themselves. And that's where you just really, that's where I've learned to be very guarded with what I'm going to share about some of the dreams and the passions that I have for myself. I'm just not going to go share those with anyone. I'm not going to go talk because those are very personal. They matter. And so I'm not going to go share those with someone who is going to put those down or question them. So learning to have boundaries about that. But my brother calls it the broke dick mentality, where you have broke dicks who are critical, they're condescending, they're victims, and that's the behavior that is always really really big red flags to me. I want to be around people like you mentioned that are excited, that are pursuing things, that want to better themselves, they want to be in shape, they want to improve their health, their business, and they're willing to get out of their comfort zone to do those things.
Yeah, you have people that are very, very victim mentality focused. Run, try and do whatever you can to help, get them through that in the short term. But if they just never change and that's just something that they just have decided in their life, they're going to be those negative Nancy's and pulling the anchors, pulling people down around them, just at all costs, just get away from that and just be amazed at how much your life can improve and just how more
Yeah.
fulfilled you'll feel.
Because you will be the next victim and you will start talking like them. It is so dangerous. And I have a rule. I don't allow victims into my life.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
So
it
as you guys
doesn't
can tell,
mean
a
we
lot of
can't be, we can't be victim. It doesn't mean that bad things can't happen to us. But ultimately we have to take responsibility.
Yep. So as you guys can tell, a lot of this comes back down just to mentality. Just how are you approaching every day? Are you optimistic? Are you glass half full? Are you an half empty type person? And just to have that direction, just having that ability to be an optimistic type individual, I think that is such an important part of all of this that we've been talking about today and really throughout the entire year. Just remember that these mindset resets, they aren't about just the hype, it's about the habits that you're going to create through doing these. And right now is the perfect time to reset yours. So if you're serious about building momentum for 2026, always willing to just jump on a quick 30-minute strategy session with you guys. It's free, no strings attached. Just love to have another way to connect with you guys. So if that interests you at all, feel free to book one. It's just at adamsillsdenver.com. If you'd like to connect with Ben as well, feel free just to shoot us a direct message and we can connect you with him. But more than anything else, just do whatever it takes to start the year confident, clear, and ready to win.
We're almost there. So buckle up, get ready. In 2026, here we come. Well, thank you guys for listening to the Pursuit of Progress podcast. Remember, your mindset sets your motion. Don't drift into the new year, design it. I'm Ben Adams with Adam Lang. And as always, keep pursuing progress. Love you guys. We'll see you next week.
We'll see you guys soon. I was about to say we'll see you next year. I'll save that joke for next week.